is the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry, brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. Hello and welcome to Chewing the Cud podcast. My name's Andrew Jones and, well, like last time, as regular listeners may have noticed, I'm on my own again recording the introduction because unfortunately I have some news to share that Neil has decided to retire from his involvement in the podcast. With new opportunities on the horizon, Neil has felt he can't commit his time to the podcast in the way he was able to before, and so has decided to retire from his involvement in the podcast. I'd very much like to thank Neil for his time over the past 2.5 years, because without it, the podcast wouldn't be what it is today. So thank you very much, Neil, and I'm sure you'll all join me in wishing him well for his future endeavours. However, you haven't heard the last of Neil just yet, because like today's podcast, we've got several episodes recorded and stored ready for you to hear. You'll still be able to hear his dulcet tones at different times over the next 6 months, as these are released mixed in with other episodes recorded with Sarah as the co-host. Which takes us on to today's episode, which was recorded in July 2024, when we spent a day discussing 3 projects we'd previously seen during our visit to the Southwest Dairy Development Centre. You've already heard the episode with Anthony Marsh from Hoofcount discussing the Pediview, and there's still the episode recorded with Herd Vision to be released. But today we're talking to Oxi-Tech about their pulsed oxidation device. This looks a very interesting prospect, which has the potential to make the washing of your parlour / dairy plant chemical-free. At the time of recording, the final report from the testing at the Southwest Dairy Development Centre had not been released, and so our guest was unable to share some of the subsequent information that has now been made available. Some of the highlights include a reduction of 24% in the energy requirements to wash the robots on site, because there wasn't a need to heat the water, as well as performing better than conventional disinfection systems for treating water coming into the robots. I should say that this can be retrofitted to any existing dairy. It doesn't need to be a robot. Like the other 2 projects recorded on the day, we hope to do a follow-up episode with all 3 next year to hear their latest updates. One very interesting development since the day was that Oxi-Tech have now started their first hospital project with the NHS, so it shows there's some potential. Anyway, enough of me, and on with today's episode as we discuss the potential of chemical-free dairying. Hello, and welcome to the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry. Farmer, advisor, processor, and everyone else, we have topics and episodes that will interest you. We discuss the practical and the technical aspects of different UK dairy industry topics. We aim to make you think about what you're doing and ask yourself, can it be done differently? Listen to us speak with specialists from inside and outside the industry about their area of expertise. Subscribe and listen to episodes for free on your favourite podcast platform, or sign up on our website, www.chewingthecud.com, for podcast notifications so you never miss an episode, and links to our socials. Or email us direct on podcast@chewingthecud.com. If you like what we do, please share and leave us a review to show your support, and that's it. Enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome to Chewing the Cud, and as already mentioned, this time we are talking about the Oxi-Tech system, and with us today is Paul Morris, who is it CEO of Oxi-Tech, is that right?
That's correct, yeah, thanks for inviting me.
No, more than welcome, and again, this is a follow-up from our visit to the Southwest Dairy Development Centre back in May, and there was a few different projects that we thought, they're interesting, they'd be worth following up with, so thank you, Paul, for joining us. So, as usual, Paul, who are you? How did you get to where you are today?
That's a long old story.
Well, try and keep it, not too long.
Give the unboring version, I think. Well, I started out my career, what I term the dark side of chemicals. I basically started in mass production. It was supposed to be a research company, but to be honest, it was what we call bucket chemistry.
Yep.
It was blending all sorts of what I now term as nasties, things like trichloroethylene. Do you remember Tipex?
Yeah. Yes.
Because of the Tipex, great.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
Sorry.
That was one use, Rich. And I think
Don't do that at home, kids.
I don't think you can get it.
I wouldn't have a clue.
Basically, this stuff was, very, very effective, and I think our primary industry was the steel industry.
Yep.
It was used for cleaning. Cleaned wonderfully, but very, very horrible stuff to make. And all we were doing was we're bulking it up and selling it on. I ended up working with something called hydrofluoric acid.
Yep.
This is I was about 19, 20, in between university summer jobs. I mean, that stuff. Sulfuric acid gets in your fingers, it burns.
Yeah.
Hydrofluoric acid sinks through and attacks the calcium in your bones. So that's work experience for you.
Yeah.
I don't think the health and safety regs would allow us to do that
anymore. Hopefully,
but and then I moved out of that into something that probably had a longer life expectancy. So you can imagine why I decided this probably wasn't for me, and I ended up electronics for a while in post-Soviet Budapest. That's another story. But in the end, I came back to the science.
So not really agricultural background at all.
Not at all.
Yep.
So I ended up running laboratories and building up laboratories. I worked for Severn Trent.
Yep.
Other countries, Australia.
Yep.
Around the world, really, in the lab game and water labs.
Yep.
That's kind of where I come from. In
Right.
fact, I was really heavily involved in landfill water testing and runoff.
Yep.
It's got a bit of a link to this.
Right,
all really glamorous industries.
Great. Yeah.
Landfills. And then I've actually spent the last 10 years building up what we call the chemical-free, which is not strictly a technical term, chemical-free air disinfection business using UV.
Yep.
And we built that up.
So that would be like for water filtration and stuff like
This
that?
is air.
Oh, air. Sorry, air. Because
air in air conditioning.
Because obviously you can clean water with UV as well, can't you?
You can clean water with UV. It's a super effective technology.
Right. Sorry. Yep.
Right, and this is the air one.
So
I had heard of that.
That was during the pandemic hit.
Yep.
So you can see we were quite popular at the time. So I exited that business in 2022. I was going to take a year off.
Yep.
And, took about 4 weeks off, maybe 3. Needed another project, and I've known the Oxi-Tech guys for a couple of years now. I've got probably actually more like 3 or 4.
Yep.
Wonderful tech, great platform.
Yep.
And they'd done a lot with it, but they'd hit the buffers. They'd ended up doing a dairy project.
Right.
Because I think they started off.
So it's probably 3 or 4 years ago, I think I first heard about it.
Exactly, And these guys, and I'll tell you the history of that maybe a little bit later, but these guys got into dairy via, they were talking to people in the washroom, water disinfection, water cleaning, do anything with this, water companies. But they ended up somehow gravitated towards Harper Adams. Got in touch with Agri-Epi, as it was. And they set up a lovely project looking at seeing whether this thing would talk to a dairy robot. Meantime, they knew some farmers, and at that point, they installed the system in a farm over in Norfolk, which is still running, and that was the prototype.
Wow.
And it did really, really well. So that's the sort of entry point to dairy. I think they sort of came in sideways there. And when I got involved in the business just over a year ago, I thought you've done so much. Let's carry on, and that's sort of taken us to this point.
So that you say you've only been involved with business for last year, but I guess really so that's yourself. Oxi-Tech, I'm guessing, started out 3-4 years ago with this idea.
Well, no, actually, it's another interesting story. These guys originally, this technology came out of a well-known South African British diamond company. Narrow that one down, and actually came out of the industrial research division quite a while ago.
That was going to be one of my questions, because when we saw Mike, he said he thought it came out of, was it some World War II technology, wasn't it, I think was what he said. But he wasn't 100% sure, so it was going to be my question. Where does this come from, and where does it then take the step for them to go, well, actually, this might work in the dairy industry or whatever it happens to be?
I see where he came from on that one. There is you can go back as far as you like. I mean, diamonds go back quite a way.
But it's the stuff that they put into the water, I suppose, that the people were trying to clean out.
Well, I don't think that was even the original intention. What they found is that sometime after the Second World War, there was a bit of a concern about drilling, mining, diamond manufacture, where it was coming from, the supply.
Blood diamonds.
People didn't want to be beholden to one country to come and get this raw material. So, as I understand it, they started to develop a scientific and industrial process to synthesize diamonds. And that is a whole. I'm not the best guy.
Yes, but there obviously are synthetic diamonds out there.
We use
it's really interesting.
Diamonds. That's what we use in our system, and they're.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
We'll come to that then.
Yeah.
But basically, the way, as I understand that kind of develop is that you start to make you've got a synthetic process, which originally, I guess, was to probably, you need to ask some experts in this, probably for the mining industry. I imagine.
Right. Oh, so it came from the mining industry originally. Right. Okay.
And of course, once you've got a material, super material, it's got so many properties, it's so hard and conducts heat, things like that. They then, cart before the horse, then start looking for things to do with it. Outside of that traditional industry.
Yep.
Now, a couple of the ones, applications that you've seen, more recently you've seen things like Swarovski diamonds, the sort of synthetic diamond jewelry market. There's other elements, sort of other industrial commercial applications to do with heat transfer, things like LEDs. So it's a super material anyway. Well, these guys, carried on developing this sort of concept, and what I imagine about, don't quote me on the exact dates, about around 10 years ago or more, one of the research team left this company, and he took with him some patents, and he moved down to the southwest of England.
So he had the patents. He had the patents himself.
And this guy was really the old school inventor, English inventor, and he looked for applications. And one of the applications that seemed really important was if you put this material, it's not just, there's some other secret sauce in there. It's not just a diamond. It's a wafer. When you put it in water, and when you add electricity to it, don't ask me how we got to that stage.
I was going to say, how do you take the leap from there to there?
I imagine a lot of things exploded.
Now you all have the image, as you say, the mad English professor just...
Well, I didn't call him that. But I imagine a lot of things sunk or exploded. Whether it was a program of hit or miss, I wasn't in that, but it's a fascinating story nonetheless. He got to the stage where he realised that if you put a small amount of electrical current through this material, and that material is put into a good medium, water is a good medium for this, what you end up doing is you end up energising that medium and creating oxygen. If you carry on with that process and you do something particularly clever to that diamond, it goes a step further and produces more complicated oxygen molecules, and something which I won't bore everyone with, something called free radicals. So temporary condition.
You're taking me back. I started doing a chemistry degree, so before I decided to go back into
the nightmares are coming back.
Before I started going to farming, so you're talking about free radicals and whatever. I'm like, oh god, here we go.
I won't bore people with that, but you can obviously look at our website and come check. But we're talking about how we got here. Basically, this condition, you put the diamond in the water, you charge it up, and all of a sudden you've got these really powerful oxygen compounds. It's in a very active state. It doesn't like being there. So it
wants to do something basically.
If you don't do anything with it, it just returns to water again.
So it will just, if it's unused, it will just dissipate back to its original state.
It drops its state, H2O. So our waste product is water, pure water. Now, what you can then do with that is, when it's in that state, you've got a very, very powerful disinfectant that's multiple times more powerful than hypochlorite.
Because you've got the free radicals, so basically you've got
energy.
What's the word? You've got free hydrogen molecules roaming around, basically.
Free hydrogen, yeah, it's an electrode. So we're dealing the oxygen side, one side of the electrode, and that's the one we're interested in. And there is the other side, which is hydrogen, which is quite topical at the moment. If you look at the hydrogen cells,
It certainly is.
what I'm dealing with right now.
But you're saying acids, that's what makes the acid, isn't it? It's the hydrogen in it.
Yeah, exactly. You can do other things with that.
Yeah.
And on hands or anything like that, this doesn't do anything to you as a...
No, but basically at the amounts we produce, concentrations we produce, there's no what they call transdermal. It doesn't go through the skin. It's a relatively safe. All things have risks that you know.
Surely,
You can drown in water.
Yes.
If you had a hit from steam recently, you'll know.
Yeah.
Steam can't, you know. So you got to take the usual precautions. But I think what we look for when we apply this to things, because you already realise there'll be 1,000 applications to this, which is another problem. You've got to make sure that it's at least as effective.
Yeah.
Surely.
B, less risky than what you're currently using.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at this particular view in dairy farming, if current technology is things like parasitic acid and chlorides, then we've got to be safer than that.
Yes.
I think we can be pretty certain it's
Well, as I say,
safer in the doses that we're using. Yeah.
maybe this is an oversimplistic view, please tell me, but it sounds like basically you're starting with water, you're exciting the water.
Charging it up.
Yep, and if it's not used, it goes back to water.
That is not.
And I'm guessing if you use it, it's probably going to water as well once you've used it, or?
No, once you use it, it's gone. So those molecules they'll hit things like bacteria, slime mold.
Yeah, but it's not giving
So side products from that.
But it's not giving any toxic products.
No, I think the thing you've got to be careful of is if we're just going to talk about water, then obviously water's not water, is it? What's coming in is there's all sorts of stuff coming in. So what we like to do is look for applications where at this stage anyway, we're looking at potable water. We're looking at water that's of a fairly reasonable standard.
That was going to be one of my questions. Was what does it have to be? Does it because that was something you mentioned when we first came out. Is can it be used? I don't know, more remotely where maybe there isn't potable water, but you're saying at this stage it has to be potable water.
We're looking at potable water. If there's anything else in there, we like to filter it. So, for example, there's huge applications in wastewater treatment.
So I was thinking.
The Germans are playing around with treating heavy metal from industry effluents. But you've got other things going on there that need to be exposed.
I guess how potable does it need to be, knowing that this area, having grown up not a million miles away from here, is very it's hard water because it's obviously got a lot of lime scale, calcium in it. Does that affect the process, or does it have to be effectively distilled water?
No, not at all. No, I mean all we need to do is make sure that if we take a water quality sample test before we go ahead, then we just need to tune it.
Right.
So for instance,
that makes sense.
Yeah, for instance, one of the big issues we have when we do an application is if people are already putting disinfectants like chlorine in the water, and we found that.
Which you do, and especially potentially. I'm just thinking where we are today. Obviously, the windows are blinded for this, but there's chicken houses out there. Usually, chickens you add chlorine or whatever in there, don't you, for water quality?
Exactly, and so if you're doing that already, we need to know about it because we end up attacking that and taking the chlorine out, which doesn't allow us to get things like bacteria. And so as long as we've got a view on what's coming in, even if it's a snapshot.
But then you can use it together, though.
Yeah, it's simple because we could just put a little active carbon filter on it, takes the chlorine out.
Okay.
We're good to go.
Easy as that.
So we just got to have a rough idea of what's coming in, and then we can take steps accordingly.
So it doesn't matter if you're in a hard water, soft water area, whatever. As long as you test it, you can adjust it.
Softener, you can put a bit of softener in it. And,
but dirty water you have to filter first. Like for instance, slurry water eventually. But
exactly. Actually, we're talking to people now about. In fact, slurry is something that came to me in the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
The company approached us and said, we've got slurry and we're doing something very, very important with it. We're reuse it. We're able to take contaminants out. We've got one problem. Once we run it through our little filtering system, we can't guarantee it hasn't got pathogen in it. You know?
Right.
Particularly with things that have been recent news, like Cryptosporidium. E. coli being found on salad. They're just a little bit worried about that because they've got consent to discharge it. Actually, that's what we do. We can, if you've just run that through a bed and taken all the solids out of it, and it's just you just want to polish that. That's just perfect for us. So there's a number of applications.
Okay, because it's actually, I mean, obviously something that we were discussing about Jones disease, and actually what we do is we'll put slurry onto the lands, but then obviously that slurry with this bacteria in it, and that can actually...
That is squarely in our capability set. Of course, we can't do everything, and we can do things
step by step. But it sounds like there's potentially a huge level of applications for this, and with each one, you're potentially reducing the use of chemicals. It sounds very much like a very win-win situation.
It is. The philosophy of the business is, I was a bit theatrical about this, it's the weaning industry of its chemical addiction. It's got potential. I mean,
there might be a few people upset with you, mind.
Well, yeah, exactly. That won't be the first time. But what we were trying to say is, you know, as a business, you know, and I've been involved in quite a few, you can make money, and you don't have to knacker the environment at the same time.
That's exactly right.
It's hardly very revolutionary at the moment. And what I was amazed at, you know, I've worked abroad a lot over the last 10 years. This last year or so, been really UK. It's just how, you know, even in an industry like agriculture, I had no idea how hard farmers are being pushed to become sustainable. I don't think the average person
doesn't. No.
You think of heavily polluting industries, obviously. You think of cars, you think of transportation. That's in the news all the time. But actually, there's an awful lot of pressure being put on farmers.
Huge amounts.
What I've seen this last 12 months, so talk to vets, talk to farmers, talk to the guys at places like Harbour Adams and here at Southwest Dairy Centre. And it is just right at the front.
It is right at the front.
And you've got to disinfect this water. We're running out of water, clean water. You've got to disinfect it for food production. You've got to disinfect it for drinking. And although it rains quite a bit down here in the southwest, we're running out of clean water. So you've got to treat it. It's not a question of whether you do it or not. Now, if you're going to do it, well, can we do it without dumping loads of chemicals in it and heat 1,000 litres of hot water?
I'm just thinking this is probably a next step on from what you're talking about, the slurry bugs, maybe not involved with you, but usually you talk about you can get various slurry bugs, can't you, to digest slurry, etc., etc., etc. And the thing that people always say is don't put your parlour washings down there because it kills the bugs and therefore they don't digest the slurry. So again, this is another step. You're taking the chemical out and that could go down into there. The washings could go down there and the slurry bugs can do their thing.
Yeah, these things can be treated. I mean, all we're trying to do is apply our tech to places where there's a lot of pain and a lot of downstream chemical use. And then all we do, but if we do that, it cannot be, you know, riotously more expensive than conventional. It can't be nearly as good, but not really as good. It's got to work. It's got to be cost effective. And from, you know, I run a business, so we've got to make money to carry on.
Of course.
And basically what we look for is problems and pain that people are already having to pay to solve. That are scalable, universal, they're everywhere. They're not just in one village, in one town. And what we do then is take the sort of downstream contamination of chemicals out of that, but we're giving them the same effect and trying to keep that cost.
So from what you're saying is, before we get into more detail, this could very easily be scaled up for a lot of things. I mean, I know it's one of your original questions, wasn't it, Neil, was, you know, for argument's sake, could this be scaled up to put in a milk processing factory to clean all of their equipment as well? So this could be scaled up and used in something like that.
That's a scale up. If you look at the size of this farm, it's 100 something metre line and tens of thousands of litres a day. Actually, we talked to one of the buyers from here about a few months ago, and they had a factory, and they said, come come and talk to us because we've got exactly the same issues, challenges.
Yes.
Of course, yes.
Yes.
Same system.
Same system, exactly. It's the same pipes, the same flow of that. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing because I always believe that would be the big difference because what you were saying is that the concentration usually comes onto us as the farming community to sort of change and to adapt and to be more sustainable.
Yeah.
But if the whole system, the whole
food
pipeline and chain comes in line, well, it's just huge.
We know there's a problem. You've got to disinfect. And we know
of course we have.
The reason chemicals like chlorine are used as they work.
They do.
They work really well and they're easy to get hold of and they're easy to manufacture. So we've got an uphill battle there, but we're not shying away from that. We totally understand why people are doing it because they've got to do the job first and then the cost and then the environment.
That's right. Yeah.
We're trying to solve all of those.
That's right. Exactly.
Probably jumping ahead here, but is there a class of bacteria it can't deal with?
Not known, no. So there are bacteria that are, sort of resistant to hot water treatments. And thermoduric is a term you guys are all familiar with. And there are bacteria that are resistant to things like chlorine. None of those bacteria are resistant to our treatment.
Wow.
That we know.
Oh, wow. So potentially, if what was crossing my mind was potentially this could have a medical application in terms of potentially disinfecting and washing down.
It is used for that.
It is used for that. Hospitals and stuff. It is used for that.
It is, right.
So one of our applications will be, we're really going to follow dairy through to the end here. We're going to make this a scalable commercial product. So we've got this far. We've had wonderful support from people like Agri-Tech. We're a great team on this particular project with our vets and our industry experts. I can't go into too much detail, but they've all been superb. They know their business. So they've put that time and effort in. The operators been patient with us as we try these things. So we want to get this done, but we are moving into already other areas.
So
hospitals.
Because obviously we know from the potential of this going into the dairy industry, but what you're saying is it's out there, it's already progressing.
Just talk me through this because I think quite a few people, like we're at a huge advantage. We've actually seen this system and exactly what it looks like. Talk me through from the beginning. What does the machine look like to start with?
I'll visually describe it.
Yes.
Mime and dance.
Well, to be honest, it sort of ties in what I was actually next going to ask you. From where it was for 4 years, did you say the original prototype went in? Where's it gone from there to where it is now?
Because what does it look like then?
We've seen it now that it fits nicely inside the cabinet of the robots here, but how's that developed in that time to get where it is? And as Neil then says, what does it look like today?
Without boring people, we've got the business end of it, which is the
that's right. From then on,
electrical cell. Now you can do a couple of things with this. You can either have it in a pipe. And just have it running. Or
into your water source. Or into your
water
chemical source.
This will do borehole water, it'll do drinking water. It's there as a technology that can do that. So you've got smaller flow applications where the cell will just fit in there. In higher volume applications, what we do is we put a bank of cells. And then we feed those cells to a reservoir.
So you're creating a volume.
That's right. 100 litres, 200 litres, 300 litres. In this instance, I think on the manual parlours that we fitted, it's around the 200, 210 litre area. You've just seen the robotic version. There's obviously a smaller footprint.
One for each robot.
And it's smaller flows, but longer. So I think we've gone with that.
So water flows through this system
120
continuously.
litre tank.
Yep.
So we build that up into a tank, recirculate it, and then that's our engine. That's our, if you've got to think in terms of chemicals, that's our drum of
Yes, that's what I meant.
That drum is infinite.
Yeah.
You only need one little container, a couple of cells. That replaces every single drum you have all year on site. So instead of a bank of
it's not just saving you on the physical chemical itself, it's saving you having the IBCs or whatever you've got around that then need to be recycled as well.
Or running out of it because it's your supply. You don't have to phone somebody to bring it.
Clean in place. It's here all the time, it's on all the time, and it's at your demand. So that helps manual parlours as
Absolutely.
well in this instance. And I think what we were trying to do is, analyse then what the downstream carbon impact
Yes,
is. Now, there's a million ways to calculate this, and none of them are very accurate. But
No.
I think if we only take the carting of drums up and down, whether you're using 1,500 litres a year, 2,500 litres a year, we are in the tons of carbon per farm. And you just can work that out just by looking at 100 drums is.
Because
and I mean the space the cost of the space is another
space. Contact with the acid or your hands, you don't get that anymore. So there's a lot of downstream benefits. But basically, you've got a reservoir. You've got a set of cells feeding that reservoir, and then it's an electronic control system. With probes in the water to check we're on and to check the water conditions are correct. And that's it. Controller, power driver, cell, reservoir. We fit that into a very professional, neat package that fits into the robot system. And I guess in essence, you pull out the robot system and its pumps, and you put our system in. Sorry, the chemical system.
Yes.
You put our system in, turn it on, and that's it. You leave it there, and the only thing you do is you replace cells every 6 months.
I was going to say, what's the maintenance for it?
6 cells every 6 months. A cell replacement. That's
it.
That's it. Yeah, no more chemical dosing. No more.
Don't have to worry about peristaltic pumps and all of those sorts of things.
Just cells every 6 months.
Now, when we were here a few months ago with Mike, when we were looking round, they were in the process of doing all the pre-checks before it was turned on. So as we stand at the moment, I'm guessing the system has been a goer for the last few months. How's it been? Have there been any hiccups? Has there been a higher TBC or whatever it is? How's it gone?
Well, it's been an amazing ride.
Right.
Now. I can't go into too much detail. We have we have confidentialities. We've got,
that's sure.
Review, which I think if this comes out after, then I think we're all very, very good. But in essence, we were trying to do 3 things. So the first thing is we were trying to be as good as in each area. So number 1, we wanted to prove the energy use of the system would improve, so hence the carbon would improve what you get by using conventional hot water on the robot.
Absolutely. Mike was implying that there wasn't a lot of energy involved in using it.
It's the equivalent of a laptop and 4 light bulbs. Effectively
per day. So
that's amazing.
For a year, it's switch your laptop on, put some lights on,
and that's it.
Much we use. By the way, we are starting the solar program in the next few months, which then
even better.
It's nothing. It fits itself quite well.
Yeah. So in that regard, then, if you're taking out hot water, that's going to be reducing the energy. You're not going to be using peristaltic pumps and everything like that in the same way.
In the same way, we've got to pump the water.
But not in the same way. But no, I was thinking that you still got to pump around the system. But I'm thinking that peristaltic pumps to pull up the chemical, all of these little things.
That's no longer the case. So if you add all that together, that's the first thing we did is take a look at the energy, and we've got live.
And so how's it come out then?
We're looking at about £1,000 a robot a year in energy saved.
Amazing!
Wow!
Yeah.
That equates, if you depended on the calculation, about 800 kilograms of carbon a year per robot.
I was going to say that's important, isn't it?
And that lines up with what we saw when we did our farm, a manual farm, where we took X number of drums of parasitic acid. And we talked to farmers, and we looked online, and we read up the theory. Basically, it varies from country to country, but a number of for 250 head a farm in the UK that used parasitic acid, 1,000 litres, whatever it was, and we had tons. So that theory matched up with what we found when we actually looked at the energy use.
But that's just looking at the energy use. We're not even looked at the chemical side.
We haven't got to the second part.
No. So just energy, you're potentially saving £1,000 a year on a robot.
That's that's come out of the trial.
Yep.
So that's actually hard data. We need to work.
And the carbon footprint is 800.
That's a common carbon footprint if you use a certain calculator to find out. So those are doing it.
Sure.
Kilowatt hours and not a lot.
But without a doubt, it's less.
So it's making a saving on that straight away.
That's the first investigation into that. We probably do more, but it's clear it's a significant number.
That is significant.
The second thing we looked at was looking at the efficacy of our system versus conventional disinfection. So we've set up a trial to try and iron out the noise. Now this is where this has been a huge challenge. This is a real farm. It's not a lab.
No.
So there's so many things that go, come into play. Like
That's right.
Water quality one day can be different from the next.
That's right. Absolutely.
The weather could be warmer. Certain cows could be shedding. Your audience will know all about that a hell of a lot more than me. But that is a challenge when you try to pick out one little part and say, we had that effect. So people a lot smarter than me, our vets in the team and the labs, they came out with a sort of protocol to try and test one set of robots that didn't use our system with one set of robots that did. And then we swapped them over, did it again, and compare the data. So that's kind of what we have. And we talk about that whenever this is going out. We talk about that in a few days' time at the dissemination event. So I can't talk too much in terms of detail, but what we found is when we disinfected with the robot with our technology, pulse oxidation technology, and we ran the other system conventional, when not a lot was happening in the environment, the cows were relatively okay, and water quality wasn't doing anything, we saw a slight improvement. So in the data that came out, when we were testing the milk quality, so that we could really try and look at what's important. We didn't look at swabbing and testing what was on the surfaces of the machine. To some extent, that's like okay, so what? We tested the milk, which is what's important. What's appearing in the milk.
Yes.
Because the vet said that's the best way of really comparing. And it means
that's the raw product that's being sold on, isn't it?
The money comes and goes.
So
I thought it was a great idea. So we followed the advice on that. And so what we saw across all of these different bacteria types was an improvement, slight improvement when things were
normal.
Fine. So that's good because the objective was that we didn't have a worse result. That was at least our minimum standard passed. And we'll be able to talk more about that in weeks to come. But what we did see was quite clear that in the early data that we got, when something happened, for instance, you have a water quality issue, that all of a sudden you get bacteria washing into all three lines that we have here. The line that had the conventional treatment, you ended up with some of that you could see a bacteria count on the scans. And when you looked into it, it was the bacteria that you saw coming in the water. So that was early days.
So the poorer quality coming in was filtering through and showing up in the milk.
It showed up on the robot. That's then treated, and it's all done the normal way. And there's little risk here, but this is early data. The data showed that when that happened, something happened downstream. And what it showed is where we had our treatment in, hardly anything to nothing appeared. So it was a very low count. So we were quite confident when things are, when the environment's challenging, we are having a really positive effect then on the end product. So that's all. So far, there's a lot more investigation needs to be done. That's extremely encouraging.
So that was the second thing, wasn't it? So what was the third thing?
The third element then is the cleaning phase. So we wanted to be at least as
effective
as conventional treatment. And what we saw there was not what we initially expected. And I can only talk in broad terms at this point because we've got a lot of dissemination to do, and we've still got to crunch
numbers,
a lot of the data and everything. But what we first saw is when we switched our system on for the first time, we did see on our test runs, we saw an increase in back-to-scan, like a big increase in back-to-scan. And this confuses me, and it confused our vets, and the team were going, this is an antibacterial. It's not a question whether this works or not. But the numbers are supposed to go down, not up.
In my head, I know what I'm thinking, but I'll let you keep going.
So we didn't make any assumptions. We wanted to check the samples our testing procedures are okay, and we went through a number of hypotheses, and then we went to test those hypotheses to double check what we
So
were seeing.
Initially, it was a bit like, this isn't going as we're expecting. This isn't good.
Like, wow, okay, well that's not great.
Yep.
I think somebody termed it suboptimal, which I think a massive understatement that I just found really, really amazing. So this was off. We looked at the first data and thought, well, but that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
What we then did is we tested the system. We took samples of this pipe. We took it offline.
Yep.
Put it in the lab and then look at it. And then we ran that again offline with our system. One system in the lab, one system in the field.
Yeah.
And we ran it, and what we found, I can say we found so far, is that there is residual bacteria in that pipe.
Yep.
That wasn't removed by the standard hot water concentration.
Yes. Do you know that was my thought?
Yeah.
Was because I know obviously from milking cows and that myself. If you get that build up and you have a problem, and all of a sudden you've had to bomb it or something. Yeah. While that wash might do it, you usually then have the lag of a couple afterwards of what's the word I'm looking for? The colony then has been disturbed, broken loose, and those fragments are coming through. And as soon as you said it, that was my thought going, you're suddenly cleaning things that have been sat there for ages and have been unaffected by traditional methods.
That's the running
thought at the moment.
We've got a lot more investigation.
Yeah.
We're using some of the best people in the industry on this, and this is great. I am not a farmer or milk microbiologist, so I'm really relying on them to guide us to the next stage. But what I wanted to do is a guy that ran labs for years and years. I wanted to make sure that we'd be robust about it and that we double check, triple check. And we've done that the best way we can with all of these variables going. What we've done is we've run a small scale sample in the lab. And then we ran it against our system. What we did see in the lab, and it's unverified, and we're going to do more work on it, is that count shot up and came all the way down to nothing again as we treated it. We tried it again in the with a disconnected pipe. This was the same profile. All of a sudden, stuff that wasn't touched by the normal cleaning, flushing out, and dropping off as we clean it. That's the first stage. We've got a lot more work to do on that.
That's amazing.
And it's bacteria. When we characterised it, we don't know it's a biofilm.
I was going to say, do you know a particular bacteria that it was?
Yeah, there are biofilm forming bacteria.
Right.
There are residual in there. We haven't characterised it yet, and I'm going to the next stage. But when we all sat around a table, me included, from my sort of general lab background, trying to think of what it could be, we can't come up with another idea other than this is
what happened
in there, because where else would it come from? But we've got to investigate it more. We've got to do more work. That's what
as I say, but to me, as soon as you said it, it's like, I bet that's what it is from just experience of milking cows.
People say that, and that is another kind of element that feeds into this. But we've got to do this properly.
Of course you do. You've got to be proving that it's right. So obviously after those initial spikes, it has come down and is doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, well, that's as far as we've got. We literally in the last week. We've basically seen it spike. We've looked at it in the lab, and we've looked at it now on the line, and we've got that spike down. We've got to do more and more tests to get that dose contact time and all these things.
But if it's down, it's down then, so it's worse.
So down, it's down, and the system would be installed where you keep it down. It would replace that clean cycle, so it's every day. So you would never get that.
No, you'd never go back up to the spike.
As I say, so I'm assuming if it went in a new install, you're never going to have that as a problem.
You shouldn't have. That's the theory. That's what we've seen in the field elsewhere.
I was going to say that's where your test could be easily.
That's going to be obviously food for thought for the next round of testing. We'd like to do more, a third-party verified tests, and we want to do it in the field. These units are already being installed. We were on the DEFRA FETF fund this year. We've got a few of those going out right now. We've got some installed from before. We've got our prototype in the field in Norfolk for the last.
As you mentioned it, how many systems are out there? Because I hadn't realised there were some that people could do under the grant system that were commercially available. Obviously, you've got the prototype. You say he's been going for 4 years. You've got the ones here you're testing, how many else are out there
We've only been doing that for 2 years because, of course, COVID hit the guy's ability, and I've only been over a year or so. So we've got about 10, 15 systems in the field.
Wow.
We've got a few here.
Just in the UK?
Yeah, about 10 in the UK, including we've got units up in Harper Adams. So on and so forth. So all told, we've probably got about 10 systems here. We've got some abroad. 2 just arrived in the US a few weeks ago. So we have our US operating company now. And we're working with
exciting.
institutions like Harper Adams in the US.
That's probably like Cornell or
yes, there's universities that are very good at milk technology. What we want there is, again, to replicate or do even better than we did here. We do it all the time. Again, selling units is great, but we want to make sure we've done some really strong third-party verification by people who know what they're doing. They're experts in their field, right? And that's what my philosophy is, and that's what
that sounds exciting.
It's really fantastic. When we first saw it, we got totally excited about it. I couldn't wait to hear you talk about it.
It's a process, and it doesn't all go, as you know, spectacularly right first time, but we stick with it, and you surround yourself with good people, and you work through it, and you get to, and most importantly, you get to something that people want and that have a use for, as well as the fact we've got all this downstream environmental benefit. That's what we're after here.
That's right. Yeah, the downstream environmental impact is exactly what you said. The pressure that's been put on farmers is unreal.
Yeah, we found it in the US, which I just had no idea.
Oh, right. So does it get in there? Because it hasn't been there for a while. Nearly as strict as us, anyway.
Well, you don't associate government involvement with the states at all, do you? And I had no idea. We were out in New York State a few months ago, and you went to farm there up in the north, and exactly the same conversation. The government, the local government, New York State, they need farming to get its energy use down. They need to stop putting chemicals into the water.
Absolutely. And nitrates and everything else.
But they're really
getting there.
And there are grants available in New York State to put that kind of technology in. So that just says to me this is a universal.
So
this is a universal problem.
It sounds like at the moment you are literally just touching the industry. Really,
scratch the surface.
Really. That's the probably better phrase that I'm looking for. I couldn't find it, but you're just scratching the surface, and whereas potentially, something like this could be in every dairy around the world.
Yeah, fine. We're open for business. We'd love it. I think what we're doing next, I think there's 2 important points I'd like to make. This is early days.
Surely.
We need to be sure of our ground. And I think we can't do everything all at once.
No. Stay focused.
When you're at this stage as a business, you've got to really, really get good at something, one or two things, and then all the other things will come. It's what you don't do at this stage. Because we've got anywhere you put hot water to clean, anywhere you put chemicals in to clean water, it could be there. So if you're talking about hospitals,
exactly, schools,
MRSA, these are all currently covered by quite polluting technologies, and they're using quite aggressive chemicals. We've got to really lock it down and only do one.
I was going to say, you've got like Legionnaires or all sorts of things.
We're testing against Legionnaires, and it's very effective.
Is it?
Yeah.
So it was just a comment that I was thinking in my mind. The offensive smell of the chemicals also won't be there then anymore.
You won't have any downstream. It's water.
And it's just water. So if you were cleaning a school classroom or a hospital, you get rid of that sometimes almost offensive smell, which you almost associate with that. But it's...
So what actually comes out when it's... We've said that if it's not used back to water, but when it's cleaned, what actually comes out the other end? What is there?
When it's finished, they're just H2O. So your bacteria, let's just use
bacteria.
And it breaks that down at a DNA level. So it's gone. It's flushed out.
So it's just it's not like it's bound it up or anything like that. It is just gone.
Because it was one thing I was thinking about, because as you mentioned, when you get newer, sort of like stronger bacteria and stronger chemicals, we've often had that problem, haven't we? And you briefly mentioned it, where bacteria become resistant.
Yeah, they develop.
That's a really important point. When you're treating these things, sometimes because the environment isn't there, and this is not just farming or dairy,
absolutely,
particularly hospitals.
Particularly,
you've got antibiotic resistance. Also, you can get resistance to chlorinated compounds.
That's what I was thinking.
This works in a different way. It's actually a mechanical process.
Just what I was thinking. So it's a completely different way of doing it.
So you do not
How important is that?
Again, we're coming up with new sort of really big critical points. But
it is like you're saying, you've had one for 4 years. This is all they're doing. It's not like you've I don't know, every 6 months you've got to do a chemical wash or anything like that. It's once this system is in place, that's been
it's done.
That should be it.
And it's completely different. So the bacteria can't build up a resistance to it. It's changes.
Never say never.
Never say never. Sure.
It's clever stuff. But the commonly accepted,
because the process is different to chemicals.
We don't know of a process where it can. Don't rule anything out.
As we always say, touch wood.
We've been talking about bacteria. What about viruses?
Viruses are even more susceptible. The reason I don't talk about that is, I was doing air disinfection during the pandemic, and we were looking at very similar technology using the same thing, O3.
So ozone, basically, if you're saying O3.
Ozone and light. So it's a very similar process in air. And of course, the biggest problem, we sold the systems to tackle things like slime and, within ice machines, things like that. It's really super effective, very clean technology. Stops slime growing. Molds and that sort of things in air conditioned systems. That's the tough stuff. We did the testing on viruses. Viruses are very weak. They don't really live very far outside of the hosts. They're useless. But of course, and so I'll give you an example. There was a mold that we were removing. It took about a minute and a half, 5 minutes. That's a long time. You look at the viruses that we tested. Don't ask me what they were, but I know what the one we tested at the end was.
Yes.
Don't ask me what the original pack was. We probably 10 commonly formed, and it's seconds or milliseconds. Kill rate. They just don't have a defense against it. Obviously, then that became quite popular, and we had to dig out that data and retest against viruses. And it's very susceptible. So if you do happen to find anything in waterborne, it's not your biggest problem. Your hardcore bacteria are likely to be way more difficult to kill than that. So the answer is
and they metamorphosis, so they change a lot more, I suppose. And
there's no So the answer is yes, but it's not an area of concern. People should have.
So what are your hopes then moving forward? Obviously, as you say, you can't say too much on some things at the moment, but obviously you want this to, and eventually everything's signed off, everything hits the 3 targets that you've mentioned.
We've got approval of that.
Yep.
We'd like to roll this out. UK, we've got some great partners who are very, very interested. They know their audience, they know their business. So it's really finding, doing the last pieces of research to just say definitively that's what we've got. That's what we've done. This is now commercialized. And then to actually have a really solid team that can roll it out, got the resources to be able to fit. If we're going to make a promise and sell a unit to someone, they're able to go in and commission it.
That's right.
We're not late. And you need really good partners for that that know the business.
Is there any idea of cost at the moment? So if I came to you and said, I've got a robot, I want you to retrofit this to my existing setup, what kind of cost are we talking about?
Well, I think the only thing I can say is this last 12 months, where we are at low volume, and we've had DEFRA sign off to 50% of the cost. So a 4-cell system that goes into a robotics area, the end price is around £30,000.
Per robot?
No, per unit, you can run a couple of robots. Of that, we need.
You can run a couple of units.
You can, We're running 2 robots of that one in there at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Can we do 3? We don't know. We need to tweak it.
Test it,
But basically, the rule of thumb we had up to start of this year, the installs were running 1 system for about 200 to 250 head. Kind of tended to be doing the job. It's volume of water based.
Yes.
We've got 1 running 2 robots here, perfectly happy.
Yep.
So that's the sort of quantum. But that will be changed. That'll be up to our partners to look at that. We won't be selling individually to each farmer longer term.
But you think the cost can come down once you increase volume?
It absolutely depends on the volume. It also depends on our designs as well. We've got other designs coming through the pipeline over the next year. We're going to be working to make this as efficient as possible.
To make it more as commercial as you possibly can.
There's installs and all these other things that need to be taken into account. And that is where we're working with people who really know the market. We can't bring to market something that's just not going to work financially, that won't have an ROI. And the numbers we were working on is the return on investment is way under 3 years. Possibly under 2. I mean,
but even though
quote me on that as we,
no, that's fine. But let's take 3 years then.
3 years.
Let's take 3 years as your return on investment. But if you say your return on investment is 3 years, well, that's really nothing. If you look at, for argument's sake, you put in a parlour, what's the life of a parlour? 20, 25 years? Robots.
My field, I mean, I'm sure it is.
It's usually you talk about 20 to 25 years, don't you, if you put a new parlour in. I mean, robots, I don't know, they're probably not quite as long. I guess they haven't been around as much, but usually you're talking about, it's a generational thing, putting in a parlour. And if you're saying, right, okay, potentially another 30 grand on it, and you're going to see the return on investment of that in 3 years of potentially, let's say, 20 years. And where's your argument?
The environmental downstream.
Well, I was going to say, where's your argument for not putting one in that case?
That's kind of where we want to be. I think that's where we'd like the discussion to land.
There's going to be a few people not happy with you, isn't there?
Well, hopefully I can convince them that it's the right thing to do. But that's the nice thing about this. This is from a business perspective rather than an end user and farmer perspective. Of course, we have a consumable part. So, if you do sell chemicals, this isn't the end. You're just going to change your game a little bit.
It's like having adapt.
If we aren't providing a form of a business incentive to our partners downstream, we don't have a business.
Well,
exactly. We don't have a business. As nice as it is to the environment, we can't get to the customer.
That's right.
But how you say you need to replace a cell every 6 months? What's the cost of a cell?
The cells are a few £100s.
So not massive.
Not in the scheme.
No.
I would have said, if you look at your chemical usage, and you look at what you pay to do, look at what it's doing. I think that's quite modest, and I would say that.
But I mean, even that 30,000 becomes quite modest if you think of the chemical that you would be.
Well, we think so. That's where the ROI comes in. And we've got to tune those figures up. We're going to do more work on that.
No, absolutely.
People who really, really know. And we have talked to a lot. We've got a lot more talking to do.
Yes.
We've got to make sure those figures come in, because as those are rolled out, people are going to want to see that money back. But we're working on that right now. That's sort of the next stage.
So wow, this really is right at the tip of it, and it could just really expand.
Well, we're talking about an R&D. I said we're locking on to doing one thing or two things well. We are obviously, we're an innovation company. We've already got queued up projects next year. We don't know whether they're going to go ahead next year, or we don't know the exact timings and the exact scope. But we have got on the roster bulk tank analysis, which then goes into brewing, which we're kind of doing here already in one way. We've got a lot of interest from the agri teams to look at all parts of the dairy farm.
Well, I was going to say, what about...
water is something we do already.
I was going to say other agricultural industries, whether it's farming, I'm thinking chickens and pigs and
poultry. We've got interest in slurry treatment, and that's just come mainly from pigs, because that's generic. We are talking to a US major manufacturer and a major university to look at poultry technology. We're looking at the feed water.
I was just going to say the water quality is that. And in cattle.
Do you know, I might be making a bit of a bold statement here, Neil, but I'm sat here thinking one day we might look back at this and think, God, we were talking about this right at the very beginning, but just before it really goes massive.
We will. I can see it.
But by all means invest, guys. You got money.
Well, I might have got £5 in my wallet. What's that going to buy me?
Every little helps.
It's exceptionally positive. It's really fantastic.
It is, and it's lovely to see.
Phenomenal.
Fascinating, different technology like this coming along. Because I'll be honest with you, you hear about these things and you're just like, what is this? What's going on? Because it's different than what we're all used to thinking.
Yeah.
You just seem a little bit wary of it. But then obviously, seeing it here, talking to yourself today, you sort of go, I really think there could be something in this. And I really, as I say, I wonder if in, a few years' time we might be going, geez, we had Paul here and look, this was just the beginning and look where it's gone now. And I really think it could be.
Because we were sort of speaking about hoof baths.
Yep.
And this morning, and I'm just thinking to myself while I sit here, my mind's wandering, the water quality that you put into the hoof bath, if I know it's bacteria-free.
Yeah.
We've been asked about that.
And bacteria, by the way. And bacteria in the water troughs, because we always used to say that there was a relationship between that and mastitis. And
you've got 100 of these things. I think whilst we want to be careful, we do want to go with these if we can. We want to
eventually.
I think what some of the more senior guys in this sort of environment talked about is getting onto a farm or set of farms and trying to treat all aspects we could. For instance, another really interesting link is if your water is cleaner, then the current wisdom is then the cows drink more of it, more milk.
Yes.
Again, not my area of expertise.
But you're spot on.
You want clean water because it's like you want to drink clean water. They want to drink clean water.
If you've got a higher quality of clean water without using chemicals, and your milk yield goes up,
that would happen.
So that footpaths.
But it's like
it's not handy.
Obviously, as Neil just said, we were talking about the hoof count this morning.
Great guys.
But as you're saying, they got a grant for some of the work, but it's not just about the money; it's about the network that working with someone under UK Agri-Tech now. It's the network that brings you of other people for you to talk to and work together and all bring in the expertise and where you can go with it.
We wouldn't know where to start with it. I mean, they've been superb. And what's been wonderful, the quality of the guys that came onto this project, you could tell they know this stuff.
Different level.
And we've really taken guidance from them, and it's just been great. But the challenges as well as the successes. We've just been able to break it down and quickly come up with solutions.
Wow.
So you got that level of expertise you wouldn't really get anywhere else. And I think most importantly for me, then your Rob Morrison's and the team. He's so supportive and so positive about it.
Right.
That they really it feels that they really want you to win. That's really
Oh,
good.
no, I agree. That's right.
And it's great because it's great, as mentioned this morning talking to Anthony Marsh, it's great for UK agriculture, it's great for UK business. And just, I know, Mike, just looking on social media, the people he's had through here from Canada, and I can't remember where else it's been, but there's been other countries have come through here looking at what we're doing, looking to replicate it. It's good for the whole of the UK agriculture.
The guys in the States, I don't know whether that's changed now. There isn't anything like this particular facility. They were like blown away by it. I think Canada said the same thing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
interesting. And that isn't those aren't developing countries. They're probably the most mechanized.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a really important statement. Globally, it really does shine a light of it. It's good to be involved in that.
It definitely does. Well, I'm looking at the time. And
done it again.
Yeah. We could keep going, but I think it's time we need to pull this to a close. So, as I usually say, Paul, any last words of wisdom?
No. Please keep following us on social media. We've had a really, really good start. And you'll know in the next few months how we've done so far. And just hope the next 6 months is a reflection of the last.
Well, maybe we'll talk again and see where.
Be great.
Where is just thinking? Maybe we should do a special episode, follow up a little bit with all three of the guests we're going to talk to today, just to see where they've gone when they've gone.
I'm perfectly happy to do that.
I'm absolutely convinced it'll be good news.
Well, we're Southwest based, so we're not.
Well, there we go.
So you're not far away.
But thanks, Paul. That's been absolutely brilliant, and thanks for the work you guys are doing. This to me is absolutely amazing, and I really see the future like this. It makes us so much more positive about our industry. So thank you.
Well,
my pleasure.
It shows that as an industry we can innovate.
Exactly.
And sometimes it comes from outside the industry to come into the industry, like as you say, yourselves have been like that. But it still shows that it can be done, and it's amazing what we're doing.
Southwest, we're doing it here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. We are very lucky to have this facility where we do.
Lucky.
Definitely. So really, I think that's got to be it for us on this episode. I'd like to thank Paul for his time. That's much appreciated.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.
And we've certainly learned plenty from it, and I hope everyone listening to this does as well. So really, it's a goodbye from me.
And from me.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. And now for the really boring bit, I'm afraid, the legal disclaimer. The information provided during this podcast has been prepared for general information purposes only and does not constitute advice. The information must not be relied upon for any purpose and no representation or warranty is given to its accuracy, completeness or otherwise. Any reference to other organisations, businesses or products during the podcast are not endorsements or recommendations of Chewing the Cud Limited. The views of Andrew Jones are personal and may not be the views of Chewing the Cud Limited, and the views of Neil Gregor are personal and may not be the views of Game Changer Farming and any affiliated companies. For more information on the podcast and details of services offered by Chewing the Cud Limited, visit www.chewingthecud.com. Thank you and goodbye.